Welcome back to Beauty Begins With You because we are all what? Beautiful. Just a warning, I am going to be talking about depression and grief. So, for today's look, it's going to represent one of the darkest time that I've had in my life, and I just really just wanted to be a little vulnerable with you guys. I'm going to take a deep breath. Back in 2022, I was, already in this process of taking care of my aunt. Now, at this time of year, she got even more sick and she ended up having a stroke that left her brain dead. She was only the age 31. She had so many aspirations, so many goals, so many dreams. And I noticed, like, leading up to it, she was talking about things that she would always talk about she was never going to do. She's like, I'm going to get my driver's license. I'm going to drive. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, so you never wanted that. But in that moment, I think she knew she was coming to the end. She's been sick at that time for over a year from a previous stroke. And I just remember I was like, okay, I can't work. I can't do this. I had to take her home. She was on hospice. And the end of my 2022 was such a blur. Such a blur. I don't even remember anything after she passed away that year. It was so black. It was so dark for me. So I wanted to represent this look today to focus on how I was feeling at that time. And I choose this color because it represents like the darkness that I was in. From 2022 up to most of 2023, I was in a state of numb. I was frozen. I felt nothing at all. It was extremely difficult. I fell into such a deep depressive state. This looks represents the stillness, the numb feeling I felt for over a year, trying to come to terms with the loss, trying to come to terms that, everything is different. In a blink of an eye, someone can just be gone. I remember just laughing with her, kikiing and joking and just BSing. And then next you know, she couldn't speak. She couldn't do anything. It was it. Now I'm grateful at this time I was in therapy and I did have a good support team of friends and so forth. But that wasn't enough. I still felt deeply into a depression state to the point that, I gave up on everything. I gave up on myself. I was just waking up day by day. I didn't care about work. I didn't care about anything. I stopped paying things. I've stopped taking care of myself. I let everything go. I let everything go. I let my apartment, I let my mental health, I let my physical health, I let my financial health. Everything was just going down the drain and popping on fire. And I would say, okay, because I didn't have no other reason, no motivation, nothing. I was just like, okay. And thinking back to this dark place, I always cry and feel like a sense of anxiety because I don't know how I endured as much as I did at that time. Everything was so autopilot. I woke up, I went to work, I did this, I did that. I should have took so much time off from work, but I wasn't even in a mental place to know what I needed. All I know, I was trying to survive. I was trying to function to the best of my abilities, but I didn't know how. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know that there was light at the other side of the tunnel. And that's what the white, the glitter in this look represents. A sense of hope, a sense of light at the other side, that it will be okay, that things do get better. But I didn't believe it for a good chunk of that year. A good chunk of that year, I was so far gone, so deeply down in the roots of my depression that I couldn't even begin to fathom something coming good into my life. I was going through a lot. I was going through a lot in regards to that. I was going through a lot in regards to fighting against a system that caused so much harm to me. That's a completely different story than what this is, but it just spoke to the fact that I just didn't feel like there was a way out of this state. I didn't know how to get back on my feet, but I knew I needed to get back on my feet. And by then, I slowly but surely reached out for help and help and help, because I was like, okay, if I'm reaching out for help, then hopefully that will give me enough to kind of push me back on my feet. I think the hardest thing was staying in the apartment where I shared with my aunt and trying to cope and manage. I couldn't. I needed to get out. I needed an exit. And I got that. And I relocated. And that was helpful. Because once I did that, I started to get a little better. I started to focus back on my physical health, focus back on paying off some debt, focus back on taking care of myself. The darkness started to, dimmer. I started to see some sense of light. I started to see some changes in my overall mental health. No matter the fact that I was still on autopilot, that I was still barely functioning for that whole year of 2023, I had little glimmers of hope. I think this was the year where I celebrated my birthday and went to a Renaissance concert. And I had a little glimmer of hope then. And then I did something else and I had a little hope then. And I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing so I could slowly but surely get myself out of this depressive state. There were so many dark moments. There were so many moments where I questioned what I should even be doing, if being here was enough. But then I remember that conversation I had with my aunt and everything she was talking about, like, hey, I should have did this. I wanted to do this. I want to do that. And I was like, no. If I'm going to live, then I'm going to live in her memory and I'm going to live. I'm not going to just show up every day to work and just pay my bills and do the same thing on repeat. I made it a priority after that to really pull myself not only out of my darkest hour, but to really focus in on, why am I here? What am I living for? And how can I give myself this permission to continue on and to live? And that helped me to start planning again. That helped me to start focusing on, like, okay, if we want to get well and get better, we're going to have to start doing things that are difficult. We're going to have to pull ourselves up even more. And, there's something about this look that just reminds me of that moment of stillness, but yet still very strong and open and willing to take those next steps to future plan. I didn't know I would make it after 2023. I really had no intentions in a lot of ways, but I had amazing support. And I had a fight that just didn't let me give up. So I shared this story with you because I feel like this look brings about my sense of empowerment. It brought about my sense of meaning. And overall, just because it's dark doesn't mean things can't get better.